Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? I thought so. My name is Jeff Dillman, and I'm the chair of the Arlington High School Building Committee. On behalf of the Building Committee, I'm excited to welcome you to tonight's forum that commences our effort to gather input and ideas from the people of Arlington as we embark on a process to rebuild our high school. My job tonight is to be the master of ceremonies of the event. Arlington High School currently serves 1,360 students and is one of the top-ranked public high schools in the state and one of the best public high schools in the country. Our goal in the years to come is to build a building that is worthy of our students and staff. Before I go any further, I want to take a moment to ask the building committee, the high school building committee, to stand and be recognized. So why don't all the members, and I'll just repeat your names. We have our superintendent, Dr. Kathleen Bodie, Adam Chapdelaine, our town manager, Karen Tassoni, our recording secretary. Karen is in the back. Kirstie Allison Ampe, Frank Callahan, over there Frank, John Cole, John Denizio, Toby Jackson, Dr. Janger, our principal of the high school, Ryan Katofsky, Kate Lucian, Bill McCarthy, the assistant principal, Judson Pierce, Sandy Pooler, saw Sandy over there, Brian Rearig, Dan Ruiz, and Amy Spear. So I want to thank the committee for their service to the town of Arlington. They put in a lot of time. We've been working together for several months now, and we are excited to reach a point where we can begin to dialogue with the community. The town of Arlington is rebuilding our high school in partnership with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or the MSBA. We work with the MSBA on the rebuild of the Thompson School, and the town worked with its predecessor organization on the rebuild of 5 of our 7 elementary schools. In 2015, Arlington submitted a statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority expressing our interest in participating in a feasibility study to rebuild Arlington High. In 2016, we were invited into the feasibility study process, and in the spring of 2016, the town's voters overwhelmingly approved funds to conduct the study. Last year, per the requirements of the MSBA, we selected Skanska as our owner's project manager to help guide us through the feasibility study. The MSBA manages the method by which we select designers, and with participation by 3 of us from the building committee, the MSBA designer selection panel chose HMF architects to conduct the study. You will be hearing from representatives of Skanska and HMFH, and you will learn more about the MSBA process this evening. It is important to realize that we only have been accepted into the feasibility study process. The study will look at 3 options: renovating and adding to the existing high school, repairing the facility, or building a completely new school. The feasibility study is scheduled to end in the middle of this calendar year, 2018, and at that point, we present our preferred option to the MSBA. Once accepted, we begin the schematic design phase of the project on the preferred option in preparation for a spring 2019 referendum in which we will ask the voters to support the cost of building a new school. The Arlington High School Building Committee is mindful of its responsibility to listen to the voters, to get input early, and do all we can to ensure a successful vote. I want to discuss 2 issues that have been raised recently. First, a group of residents has asked the town to look into the possibility of building an aquatic center in Arlington. This year's capital planning budget, which will be presented at town meeting in April, includes funds to study a possible aquatic center in the community. The MSBA, however, does not fund pools in new or rebuilt schools, and therefore any study for a future pool in the town has to take place separately from the high school study. Secondly, the MSBA requires the town to examine the possibility of locating the high school in a different location. Arlington does not have many options. But the architects will study alternatives, sites, and the building committee, and the community will discuss them. Let me talk about tonight's structure. At around 7:30 p.m. this evening or so, we will start a 45-minute period, just like a school day, a 45-minute period in a school day, in which you'll be asked to discuss 4 questions at your tables. The questions will be shown on the screen behind me. A facilitator at your table will help guide the discussion and take notes. The first 2 questions will have 5 minutes each for discussion. The third and fourth questions will have 12 minutes each for discussion. The group will have 11 minutes to decide on the top 3 ideas. We'll do a round-robin report out from each group, and then if time permits, we'll enter into a question and answer period. So we are glad you're here, and now it's my privilege to turn it over to the experts. Come on up. And Jim Burrows, why don't you come up and introduce yourself?
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Jeff. So my name is Jim Burrows. I'm with Skansky USA, and as Jeff stated, we are the owner's project manager. I'm here with our team with Adam Chuck and Victoria Clifford. We're very excited to be part of this process, and we've already experienced a lot of people in Arlington, and we're excited to move forward. So obviously, Arlington is extremely high-performing school, academically, athletically, and has limitations in its facilities. So that's why we're here. That's why we're starting this process. Limitations with its projected enrollment, classroom size, everything that everybody's aware of. So the structure for the team is that we're the owner's project managers, so we primarily we manage the process as a whole, and that's as far as with the architect, with the MSBA, and we're the primary conduit between the MSBA and the town. As Jeff said, the MSBA is the primary. It's the funding agency with the state. They partner with communities to construct educationally appropriate, I think that's key, flexible, sustainable, and cost-effective educational facilities, which I think those 3 points are really key with what the MSBA's role is in the projects. So with that said, I know Jeff kind of brought us up to the point where we are, where we've brought on ourselves and the architect, and we are now going into the feasibility phase. So as you can see, we are just about halfway through this process, from starting from the statement of interest all the way through to the funding of the project, which is the vote, all the way through to the completion of the project. So HMFH is going to take a little bit of a deeper dive, our architects, into the feasibility study, but it's essentially gathering information about the building and deciding the best way to move forward with the project. What makes sense for the town, what makes sense for the school educationally, and like I said, HMFH will take a little bit of a deeper dive into that piece of it. And again, to echo what Jeff said, when we're looking at the building, we have to look at it from a couple of different angles. That is it just a renovation? Is it a renovation addition? Or will there be an entirely new building? And those are things that the MSBA mandates that we do look at. So basically, I think another key point is that establishing the design parameters, evaluating the alternatives, which is that piece of it, and also engaging the community, which is what we're here to do tonight. So again, this is just a snapshot into some of the questions that are going to be answered as we go through the feasibility study. First of all, is coming to an agreement with the MSBA, because they are, as the state funding source, they do have to be in agreement with how we're moving forward. And secondly, what should be built? And then also the cost and the schedule, and then also what percentage the state will participate in the cost of the project. So finally, there's great resources. I think you have a handout on everybody's table. There's actually a communication subcommittee to the building committee that has done a phenomenal job setting up the website on Facebook, and there's also an email as well. And just so you know that this is the opening forum. However, there's going to be 3 more scheduled right now: February, March, and April. So there'll be more opportunities for public comment. So with that, we will turn it over to our architect, HMFH, and Lori Kaus.
Can't be trapped at a podium. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see everyone here. Again, my name is Lori Coles. I probably am familiar to some of you. My firm, HMFH Architects, were your architects for the Thompson Elementary School. With me tonight are 2 of my fellow architects and team members, Arthur Duffy and Melissa Green, and they're out there going to help you with the facilitation on the tables. So we're very excited to be here and working with you all. And so my goal, and I know how to click this, is to give a little bit of focus to what we're really doing now. I think a lot of people probably think this has been going on for ages. How come we don't know what we're doing yet? We really are just starting. And that's why this is what we consider a kickoff meeting to hear from you all. So the first phase is the feasibility study phase. The feasibility study phase takes at least 10 months in total is what we've scheduled for now. And during that phase, we're sort of working at a couple different things at the same time. So what you're seeing on your left is the first piece, which is the preliminary design program, known as PDP. And in that piece, that really is information gathering. So myself and all the engineers, we've been traipsing around the high school for the last few weeks, into closets and things that people didn't even know were there, and it's been very educational. And so in that existing conditions analysis, we're looking at a couple different things. We're looking at literally the physical condition, what's happening with the mechanicals and the lights and all of those things. We're looking at the educational use. So when we're going into each of these spaces, how is it functioning? What are hindering aspects of this space when it comes to teaching and learning? And we're also looking at the overall capacity for the building. I think no one's going to be surprised. I'm sure all of you have been in the building. What's interesting about this building is it's very, very large, but a huge portion of it is purely circulation, with all the stairs and all the corridors. So even though the square footage is there, it's probably more than you need if you think about just from that point of view. What's happening in that building and how it's broken down and all the circulation that you see, and also all the spaces that are actually at lower levels without windows, so they're not really strictly speaking, can be used for classroom space. It really limits how much is actually functional educational space, and so that's part of our analysis. So that's what's happening on the left. At the same time, and what I know you've all probably been hearing about, is the educational visioning process. And so if you haven't heard about that, we'll talk more about it tonight. You can ask any questions. But the educational visioning process, we have a facilitator who is an educational planner. He will be with the group that we're developing, a group of probably over 60 people, mostly educators, but a lot of town representation. And that's looking more high level. The word vision is exactly what it means. What's the vision for education in Arlington? And out of that will be a report and documentation of the findings. From that, the next step is the educators, specifically Superintendent Bodie, the school principal, they will be writing the educational program. And that gets more into nitty-gritty. What are we teaching? How do we teach? Why do we teach this? What are the outcomes? All of that will be in there. The next step after that is when I come in and we look at what are the physical spaces that are needed to do and to achieve the educational goals that have been outlined. So those 3 steps that are there sort of are linear, one after another. And then the little marker you're seeing off to the site, Jeff made a little joke to that, other sites. It is something that the state funding agency says, you should turn over every rock You should look to see what all the possibilities are, and that's what we'll do. All of that comes down to submitting a package of all this information and highlighting what we think the possibilities are for this building. And again, MSBA requires that you look at 3 different things: all new, all renovation, renovation addition. And so that's what basically, so it's not like it's a complete surprise of what we're going to come up with, but it is sort of understanding what the implications of those 3 scenarios might be. But again, it's just scratching the surface. That gets submitted, and then if you follow the little dashed line, bringing you up to the second part of feasibility study. So if everyone's clear, we're really at the very beginning of the left-hand side. But the second part is called Preferred Schematic Report, PSR. And that is really looking at the options of what's possible, doing all sorts of analysis, both at the educational point of view and also the dollars, and putting budgets to these options. And those will be, again, vetted through the community, through the building committee. And the end of it all says to MSBA, as a community, we've looked at all these options, all these possibilities, and we think that this is the best option for the following reasons. This is our preferred option to move forward with. So a lot of steps in between. Tonight is just the kickoff. We're really happy to have everyone here and hear from everybody. And we move on to next steps. Who wants to introduce next steps tonight? Jeff? Put you back on.
Okay. Am I talking about that?
No, that was just a picture for everyone to remind them what it is.
So there's dates up there that talk about, do you want to put that back up? Okay. I'm going to make one note. The high school has not had any work done on it, substantial work since 1980. And so that's when some of us were still in high school. It's quite some time ago. So you can kind of get a sense of how the building has evolved over time. The first, 1914, 1938, 60, 61, 64, then some additions in 1980. So it's sort of, that's our history in Arlington. All right.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, so it's time. It's time. So we're now, we're ahead of schedule by about 5 minutes. That's a good thing. So we're going to go into the forum part, and the first question is going to be up right now. And so we're going to take about 5 or so minutes, and we'd like each table, there's a facilitator at each table. I think you should know what the facilitator is. And the question is, what do you like about Arlington High School? Love or like about Arlington High School? Oh, please be sure you can write questions. As any questions that come up, you can write those on the index cards. Thanks, Kathy. All right. Okay, we're going to move on to question 3. Question 3 is, and you have 12 minutes for this, is what do you see as the biggest challenges with renovating or rebuilding the high school? What do you see as the biggest challenges with renovating or rebuilding the high school? And just a reminder that if you have questions, you can put those on the index cards. The facilitators will collect them, and we'll try to answer them all at the end.
That's an interesting perspective. Interesting when we get into construction.
project I ever did was with you guys.
Oh, yeah?
Rob was fun.
Oh, yeah?
Rob and I.
Weston?
No, Rob and I did. Rob Dunster.
You got notes? Yeah. Wow, you do go
I
back.
do go back. I'm an original old timer. Fairhaven, my high school was another one I took. Yep. The guy used to
Good question, Ross. Thanks.
up to Quebec, into the outer reaches of Quebec. He was walking steel again, kind of half a foot, and he wanted to work. He wanted to work, but he didn't want to come to settlement meetings because then he had to lie, I'm not working. Yeah. Well, no, his was trying to school. He was still getting the settlements. You told him the letters, he just wouldn't show the papers. So we hired a investigator to go up this. So it's great pictures, got a lot of school.
So the fourth question is, what do you see as the major opportunities with renovating or rebuilding the high school? What are the major opportunities with renovating the high school, or rebuilding the high school? Opportunities. 12 minutes. Okay, thank you, Sean. So I want to now thank you. Our representative, Sean Garbely, is here tonight. Thank you, Sean, for being here. Have a good night. And we're now in the final 11 minutes. So in this 11-minute period, we would like you to rank your top 3 ideas, the top 3 ideas that came out of your discussion, the top 3 ideas. So have a discussion, pick those top 3. Also, please remember to keep filling out cards with questions. Yeah, so to clarify, it's the top 3 ideas that came out of your discussion, the top 3 things that came, the top 3 unique, great ideas that came out of about all 4 questions. All right, so we are at time. Dr. Bodie and the staff, okay, are going to go around and ask each group to report out and maybe just report your top thing. Percy, do I have that right? Top thing? Yep. We'll just do one at a time, and then I'll go for the second one and then the third one, and we'll see if any other groups have those things. So I'm going to start with group 2. Dr. Seuss.
Oh, wait, sorry, just clarify. I should read the 3 things or one? One, okay, great.
One.
Okay, I think, and I'm sure we're not alone in this, the number 1 concern of our group was how the construction would proceed so that we would minimize disruption for the students. You know, that we want to make sure that the process... And
are you guys getting these questions? Are you guys going to get these questions? Okay.
And that builds into some other things that are all connected. There was this question about what to do with the lawn space, that maybe using it would minimize disruption to the students.
Yep.
But then there's trade-offs in that. So that was sort of, I think, the biggest concern that our group
Disruption
had.
of students
Yeah.
and use of lawn space.
Yeah.
Did anyone else have that as a top 3? Okay. Okay, so that came up quite a bit. All right, we're going to go to Ken. Maintaining continuity. So I think the same thing. How do we maintain the excellence of the education system, the education the students are receiving during the rebuild process? All right, yeah, that's okay, we will get to that question. So group 3, do you want to report out your top?
So another one we had was at the end of the process to have a functional, flexible, adaptable, efficient school.
That is, so Ken teaches math at the school. His children will be going there. Okay. But he's completely unbiased and I didn't mean to embarrass you there, Ken. Did anyone else say it like that? No, you didn't, but okay, I'll let you. You did? But okay, people share that concern. All right, well said, Kent. Very well said, Dr. Okay, thank you, Ken. I didn't mean to. Group 4.
All right, I think our number one was that we wanted to maintain community involvement, and we really are enjoying the community involvement and kind of bringing us together, but also making sure that the community has the facility, right? Like it's kind of a hub of community for, it's a facility for the whole community, and we want to make sure that that's maintained as we move forward.
Okay, it remains a place for the community. Did anyone else have that as one of the top 3? Quite a few. Looks like quite a few. Okay, group 5, please. Or 6. I'm sorry, 6.
To come up with one that hasn't already been said, I think we see the main part of the school with the columns and the tower and the lawn in front as a focal point for the community, and like that or something similar to be incorporated into the new building.
Very good. I think everyone heard that. So. Did anyone else have that as one of the top 3? Okay, so maintaining the facade and the beauty of the facade. Okay, let's go over here, group 8, Amy's group, or Adam's group.
So we also talked about community and wanting it to be viewed as a community space that integrates and engages the community as the real focal or central point of Arlington. But on top of that, we also would like to look at leveraging economic opportunity based on our proximity to institutions closer into the city, as well as our base of knowledge workers in Arlington, and see whether or not there's opportunities to both improve curriculum while leveraging economic development in town.
Great. That's why you're the town manager, Adam. Was that Adam's idea or no? Did you take credit for that? Well, see, I would take credit for that. Oh, I came up with that.
I'm definitely not going to disagree with the town manager. No, we talked a lot about community also. We talked about it from the students' point of view. We wanted to make sure that they felt that this was their school. So we know that there's a huge opportunity to make the school a focal point and to use it for more than just, Arlington Community Ed classes in the evenings. But at the same time, we want to make sure that it's a student-focused building, and it's almost more like an inside-out kind of way of looking at it. So make sure that it's from a student. The students are still at the center.
Very good. Did other people express something similar? Okay. All right, thank you. Next group?
I'll start by saying our top 2 definitively agreed with the comprehensive flexible spaces and the occupied renovation issues. Third one's a little more esoteric. We were concerned that Arlington might not have an umbrella planning view that addresses the many current and future satellite needs that kind of rotate around this as a primary building project. Where are the superintendent's office is going to go? Does the preschool stay there? How does the senior center relate to it? What about the pool? We've talked about those things. So there's lots of people who are taking this opportunity and putting a flag on it, and how's that being managed?
So how does this fit into a master capital plan for the town of Arlington? Did anyone else bring that up? Okay. Next, Dean's table.
So 2 of our 3 have already been spoken for, but the third one that we talked about sort of as a consistent theme is whatever the final outcome of the studies and the plan and what goes into the final high school and what doesn't. I mean, it's imperative to have a community that comes together around the vision for this high school as a project that everybody agrees is a town-wide need, everybody agrees is going to meet the needs of the town, has a reasonable, not reasonable, but has a cost that, makes sense for what we're going to be getting, and that the plan doesn't create division in the community. There's no need to go through a process where you are trying to get 50% plus 1.
So something that unifies the town and doesn't lead to division. Good idea. Did anyone else kind of pump that? Oh, wow. Okay. Next table, please.
I think we had a lot of the same as what other people are saying, but one of the things that this table was talking about is that the location where it is a real asset, and it's really central in the town, and they were really concerned about, trying to maintain that location and centrality within Arlington.
So keeping it where it is in the center of the community. Did other people talk about that? Isn't it great? Oh, wow. Okay, so great. And the next table?
All right. So we also talked about center of the community, and we mentioned specifically performing arts and athletic space as attractive to the community. But since that was already covered, I also talk about space that flows and builds community, and we also talked about the trade-offs that might occur with an occupied space and not getting the building we want because we're trying to minimize the disruption, but we also want to have an end product where it's a good building where there's space that flows and not this monstrosity that we have now.
Yep. Well said. Well, monstrosity. Did other people have to say something similar? Is that okay? Annie's table.
So we talked about all the things that everybody else has already talked about. Community building opportunity. This will be an investment in the future. All that kind of stuff. But one of the things that we also talked a lot about was that this is the opportunity, the 50-year opportunity to align an educational program with a building. And the specific focus that sort of brought this into focus for us was that this is the opportunity to take STEM and squeeze the A in and make it STEAM to really build a 21st century art facility in that building. And there's probably other out-of-the-box programmatic ideas like that. This is the shot.
Thank you. Yep, well said. Did other people have something similar? Say something similar. Okay. So make it a school that's going to flexible, but for the next 50 years, it's going to meet the educational needs and educational vision of the community. Okay, Toby, or who's that?
Okay, all three of our primary ideas were taken, so we're on to our alternate list. We're prepared. So on our alternate list, this is sustainable design. Alternative energy use, alternative transportation, green roof, rooftop garden, add to the list. That's what was important to our group.
Did anyone have that as an idea? Oh, wow. Ryan Katowski, of course. How could you not? Okay. Next, Rod. Yeah, go ahead, Rod.
So they just took our number one idea.
Sorry,
so I
Rod.
had to rally
Welcome
the
to
troops.
Arlington.
I had to rally the troops. So we're going with number two. So we came up with an idea that would have a campus feel to it, so including space used for a variety of intergenerational community programming. So again, going back to that community piece.
Intergenerational program.
But like a campus feel. So as different, maybe satellite parts of the building where, that can be repurposed for different things along the way. Programming for the community.
Thank you. Great. Did other people say something kind of similar? Very good. Number 17, I think it is, right?
There's a strong sense at this table that a lot of learning in the future is going to be based on project work or collaborative work, and that there needs to be flexibility within the building to do that, and in conjunction with new technologies that will allow students to do that sort of learning both on campus and off of the campus.
Project-based learning. Did other people talk about project-based learning? Okay. Dr. Janger.
I'm not sure if any of the things we have here are new, so I'm just going to go with the principal's office should have a lap lane. That was everybody. No.
Well, if they came up with it, they came up with it.
They came up with it. So it said, we wrote, this is an opportunity to create a space informed by new models of learning, interdisciplinary, collaborative, and connected, and how the use of space can support that.
Excellent. Okay. Very good. Then John?
So most of our stuff was already said, but I will say it anyway. An opportunity to take the lessons learned and innovative ideas from recent construction projects. For example, sustainability opportunities around more efficient heating, cooling, natural light, and overall just to get more usable space.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I didn't merge all three of mine into one.
Well done. Well done. Judson.
We talked about the phasing through the construction, how will it be done with the least disruption to our students. Yeah. And we talked about the community jewel, that it ties into the physical impressive building that exists, increase the multiple use functions of the school, and encourage the use of flexible space, and that we shouldn't tie too much to what the technology is now, because that might be phased out within 5 or 10 years. So don't design to what is currently the latest and greatest, but make it more flexible for future technological.
Thank you very much. Do other people have something similar? So is there any idea that was raised at one of the tables that was not, that you think the group should know about? Anything that, yeah, Ryan. Yeah, we'll get you a mic. Karen's got a mic. Okay.
We talked a little bit also about the teachers, and a couple of things around that. One is making sure that we retain the talent during the construction process, and also that this creates an opportunity for us in the future to continue to attract top teachers. Excellent.
So retain teachers during the search. Other people had that idea? Kate, your table had the same idea? Bill, your idea? You got another one? Bill, go ahead, sure.
Just to spin off on that a bit, assurances to the community that the educational program will not only continue but won't suffer during the building program itself. The educational part of it as well.
Yeah. Adam?
So we had what I thought was a really interesting idea of trying to incorporate into the curriculum and educational plan for the school the project itself. So having students be able to learn project management skills, HVAC design, building design, construction, to use it as an opportunity to have some practical learning opportunities for the students.
That'd be great. Great idea. Great idea. Yeah. Matthew, did you get that down? Yeah, you already had it. Of course you did. Of course you did. So is someone's got their hand up back there, table 18? Go ahead. Okay, why don't we do Rod, and then I'll take you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go before this table here.
Okay.
They're very good.
I understand.
But we talked about having outdoor learning spaces to go along with the, naturally the inside of the classrooms, but extending that learning outdoors. So what would that look like in the new design?
All right, thank you. And then maybe the next table.
Now you can have it.
We'll go to 18.
Thank you very much. One of the things we talked about some as well was making sure that we are planning for the future, not just technology-wise, but certainly enrollment and quality of materials, so that we're not faced at needing another renovation or rebuild or addition in 5 years' time after this is complete.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much. Great question. Why don't we, okay, we'll take that one at the table, and then I want to get, Pat?
Yes, another thing that our table did discuss was the importance of an aquatic facility, which would have to be financed exclusively by the town, but would certainly be a selling point for the senior community as regards public relations, and it would be very important to have a first-rate aquatic facility. And another thing that was discussed was the very important 1914 building, in addition to the iconic building with pillars. Then those two are very important, especially the 1914 building, which is superlative in construction, and it would be a tragic example to the town if that were lost in any suggested building renovation. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Table 18, you had your hand up. I thought someone did. Didn't you? Okay, Sandy.
One of the other ideas was to try to restore some of the natural history of that site. I guess at some point there was a stream that ran through there, and people were interested in kind of the historic environment of the area being brought back to life.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay, I call on this. Okay, this side. Yeah, Jennifer, go ahead.
So two things that weren't mentioned. One is the problem of security in the current building, and that's an opportunity to improve security. There's a lot of doors right now. And the other thing that we talked a lot about are the athletic spaces, wanting an athletic space, maybe a field house, something that's big enough to maybe incorporate a track. We like having a big gym, so that was something that we talked a lot about in our group.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Our table also talked about the amazing student culture and wanting to make sure that that continues during construction, and also that the spaces not just educational, but also sort of gathering spaces and meeting spaces and collaborative spaces support the culture.
Thank you. All right, did anyone else want to suggest? Yes, go ahead, there's one question there.
I just wondered if there's a chance for the students to get involved in a forum like this so that their input can be heard.
Yes, there will be. Yes, yeah, there will be. All right, did you want to say something? Ken?
I'm actually an advisor for the Sustainability Club, and they had planned to send some of their leaders here. They're here. Excellent.
All right. Doctor, did you guys want to say anything? You got the whole town listening to you.
Sure. All right, so we're the president of the Sustainability Club, and I guess our question is, what is the plan? So we know that there's the LEEDS guideline, and as of now, is the project supposed to be built under this guideline? Because you get additional reimbursement from MSBA, and beyond that, I mean, just having a community and a school that's focused on sustainability. They talked about the rooftop gardens and solar panels, better use of natural light, heating and cooling. We think those are all really good ideas, but our question, I guess, is, are there any specific plans in regards to sustainability as of now?
This is perfect. This is the start of the Q&A, and you guys have started off with a very good question. Do you want to take this, Laurie, or do you want?
Okay.
We'll get a microphone. You want to? Okay. And Laurie, these guys came in. You might just Laurie Coles is our architect from HMFH.
Great questions. You can be part of that committee that we're going to talk about all those things. But in general, you're right. MSBA does give additional reimbursement points for sustainability. There's two different forms of doing that. It's either through the LEED program or Mass CHIPS, both of which achieve the goals that MSBA is looking for. As you probably know, the Thompson School is a LEED verified project, verified project with Mass CHIPS. So the town itself has some goals towards net zero. And so we will certainly be looking towards how to get close to achieving that. To date, no public school has actually achieved that. Some charter schools are getting closer, and some smaller buildings. School buildings that have so many different uses and how it's used and how much water is used. I mean, there's so many variables to achieving net zero, but that is certainly one of our charges. It was actually in the request for proposals that we responded to. The town actually put in the words net zero. So we hope to even better meeting than just meeting LEED, but going even farther if we can. Thank you.
All right. I now am going to go through all the questions, and I'm going to farm it out to the crew up here. So the first question is, how will you handle the building in a way that is least disruptive to the current students? Are the seniors going to have to go to school?
Yes. It'll be a fully functioning school the whole time. So if we do go down the road of phased occupied renovation, obviously this is the biggest concern on people's minds, that the understanding is that there's an educational environment that needs to be maintained throughout the project. We've successfully done this in other districts. We just finished Winchester, which was a 3-year phased occupied renovation. I think the key to this is beginning that planning in the design as early as possible and basically setting the project up for success. Setting the building up, how it's designed, how it's phased, is all driven towards maintaining that educational environment on the other side, and really thinking about drop-off, pickup, all those types of things as we're working through the design with the architects. And as we go through the project, continually maintaining that planning and being able to react to things, but however, we want to be more proactive than reactive, and making sure that 100% of the time we are planning for everything. Just an example of that is really sitting down with the administration at the school to understanding the testing schedule. If it's for finals. That's a quiet week on the construction side because we understand that's an important week. And if you build that into the construction contracts, if you build that into the specs, then it's straightforward. So I really think it's setting the projects up for a success and really planning from the beginning stages to minimize disruption to the students.
Okay, thank you. Next question, I think, is for Lori. When will drawings of the proposed school be available?
Not on anything that was in that slide that you saw. That's all still planning and thinking about the project. When we're in schematic design, which is the next phase, schematic design is when we'll start actually drawing things and be able to show things and ideas of how it might look and materials and all of that. The earlier phase is really looking at it more in massing, if you understand what that means, like here's a block and we could fit so much square footage here and how might that work. It's less about what maybe folks think of as design and, I'll just say it, pretty pictures, but that will come.
Okay, thank you. Question is, are there ground issues on the front lawn or only in the back of the school?
So we do know that the back side of the site and at the athletics field is a cap site. The front is not. Beyond that, that is part of the process of this project.
Mm-hmm. What plans are there to address environmental contamination at Mill Brook? Do I have that right? Go ahead.
It's the cap site.
Yeah, so that's a cap site as well. So
okay.
Yep.
Does MSBA ever object to a community's preferred option? How often? What happens if the MSBA does this?
So the whole goal for MSBA is that this is a successful project. And so with that, they are actually with us every step of the way. So it's not like we signed on with them 2 months ago and they don't hear from us for a year and we say, hey, this is what we want to do. It doesn't work that way. So we'll be working with them just as much as we're working with all of you every step of the way to say, we found this and we've decided this, and they're on board with us. I have never known of a project, certainly not that came out of our office, and we've done a fair number of projects with the state agency, where you get to the 11th hour and they say, no, we don't agree with you. It's not how the process is even set up to work. You really want them with you the whole way. And I know that Kathy and Jeff and everyone are tired of hearing me use this expression, but really they have the same goals you have. That we're looking to achieve something that's educationally and fiscally responsible. That is their goal. It's part of our goals here. So inherently you're going to come with all that same information that we're working through to the same conclusion of the best option for Arlington.
All right, thank you. So the question is, what is cheaper, an off-site school or a tear-down?
So that's really a function of the feasibility studies, getting to that range. It's at this stage that we're at the very beginning, it's that answer really can't be given. But that's the answer we're driving towards. What are the options and what are the costs of those options, to put it simply? So that question is something that is our goal as part of this study.
The next question is, what is the budget for the new school?
So I would...
Kathy, you want to take that one? I don't, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's a function of the feasibility study. I don't know.
Adam, do you want to talk to that? I mean, yeah, just don't put a number out there, Adam, tonight.
So there is no budget for the school right now. Similar to the answer that Jim just gave, that the feasibility study brings us to a preferred option, which brings us to schematic design, which then leads to where we have our first cost estimates that are part of a project funding agreement with the MSBA that leads toward a debt exclusion. That said, as I was walking up, I said, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Other similar-sized high schools in the region that are a little bit ahead of us in the process are coming in at estimated costs, and now some of them in construction costs of very high numbers. So the Somerville High School project, which does have a vocational component, so it's a little more complicated than what we'll be doing here in Arlington, does have a projected price of $255 million. So I'm not saying that's what the cost will be of this facility, but I do think that Given the cost of construction, the complexity of the site, the size of the building we're looking at, the ultimate project budget will likely be a larger number than, frankly, any project that's ever been done in the town before.
Yeah, it's the largest, most complex building project in our town. So. Okay, so could someone explain the inputs to the education revisioning? Are we effectively gathering inputs beyond the same usual suspects to evaluate and finalize the educational plan, which also will impact the building? Are we asking current and former students for guidance? Are we talking to Harvard educational experts, Minuteman? What does the conversation look like about building the educational vision of the high school? Kathy, you want
we are, that's a great question. We are beginning the input from many different stakeholders in this visioning process, which I think many of you have already, in fact, you should have received a notification about this if you would like to serve on the committee. So there's going to be numerous ways that we gather information. Certainly the visioning group will be working with a lot of the educators in the school to see, you know, what would be the vision. A lot of, you've already talked about quite a bit of it even this evening. There will be other community forums. Certainly people have been talking to other communities in terms of what their process has been. We hope to have the students involved in some focus group as we go along. So the more opportunities that we are able to reach out and have the input from the community, this is going to be more of a project that everyone is part of. I want to give a lot of kudos to the communications subcommittee because they've put together a great website. You can sign up on the website to get email alerts. There's ways that you can also ask questions. So we're trying to create as many opportunities to widen the net of people who have a part in this project.
All right, thank you. And the next question is followed, but I think you touched it. What input do current and future, what input will current and future Arlington High School students have in this process?
As I said, we'll probably have, we haven't organized it yet. We have some students here tonight. It's terrific that they came out. But we do want to have our students involved in this. And in fact, in this visioning committee that is going to meet for 12 hours, we're going to have, I think, around 10 students that are going to participate with the teachers in the school, with some of you that are here this evening.
The next question is, what precipitated the multiple phases of the current building, and how do you plan for in the future to avoid an additive experience? That is a very good question.
Well, I suspect, since I wasn't here in 1914, that all these buildings were added as enrollment grew. And for some of you, you know that at the peak there were more than a couple thousand students in the school. So it grew with enrollment. And I think in 1980 they were looking to try to make some connectivity among the different spaces, as well as add more gym space, which was very much needed at that time. So how can we avoid additive spaces? It's certainly something that we want to be able to look at, but none of us have a crystal ball what will happen in the next 30 years. But having said that, we have a design number that I think is going to certainly be a number that is going to meet all of our projected needs for enrollment, probably for the next 20 years or more. But as I said, Arlington is growing, and as you know, we have been identified as one of the top 10 places in the country to raise your children. So I think that's going to become more of a magnet. It's just hard to say. You know, with great transportation, there's so many variables here that make Arlington such an attractive place to be. But we've done a demographic work. We will continue to look at this because it's really important in terms of all of our budgeting for our schools.
Thank you. The next question is there a restriction on the number of floors? For example, could we have more than 6 floors in the building? You or?
So there's no restrictions as far as the state agency, MSBA, is concerned. I think that there's zoning and other guidelines that we would look at. Currently, as you know, you do have 6 floors in the building. So the short answer is no. There isn't really any. I mean, I think that even if for some reason, if we were bridging zoning, we would go to town planning and talk about why or whatever the case may be to make sure that we're making the right layout for the school program. So.
Okay, thank you. Can the auditorium be expanded? Will the MSBA partner with us on a larger auditorium?
So you want me to do it? I don't know. So, I haven't actually got a count on the seats that are in the auditorium right now. 900?
900.
So, let's see, how do I put this? Physical expansion would not be very easy. I guess I just would say that. First of all, you know where it is on the site, so there's not very many places to go, except for sort of expanding back, which would be towards the front of the site, which would be bad sight lines. So in terms of MSBA, I will tell you this. MSBA pays for an auditorium of 750 students. Seats, I should say, seats. So they do not preclude a community from deciding that they require a larger auditorium and paying the difference for that cost. So, which is actually an improvement, because if you were doing this project 2 years ago, they would say, no, you cannot have a larger auditorium, no matter if you are willing to pay for it. So rules keep changing, and we try to just keep up with them as they change. So in this case, the only thing I would caution about that number, in terms of what you happen to have right now, I don't know that it, meets all standard guidelines for spaces and aisles and widths and things like that. So even if we were to renovate it and bring it up to current codes, you probably wouldn't still have 900 seats. We'd need to have accessible seats, and there's a lot of other things that would go into that renovation of the space. So those are all parts of the decisions. Again, as a community, if it said that we function better, we have activities, we need this size, those are all decisions to be made.
Thank you. Next question is, who came up with the number 1,775? Isn't it
55.
1,755 for the design enrollment? And what did we learn from the Thompson project?
That's my question. We certainly learned a lot from the Thompson project, and this was one of the areas that we did. So we went with a lot of data, enrollment growth, projections. MSBA does their own as well. And so we engaged in very productive conversations about what would be the design number. We started at a lower number than that, but I think as the more data and more discussions happened, we did arrive at that number. The thing about a design number, they're not saying that only 1,755 students can be in the building. The design number determines other things. It determines the number of homeroom spaces and square footage, and as Lori was saying, for example, the auditorium, you can choose to have more space, but then that's on the town's funding part of it. So it's very likely you could have a couple hundred more students in there. In fact, if we were looking at our elementary enrollments right now, a number of our grades have 500 students, and we have high retention percentages from grade to grade. So it's very possible that we could have 2,000 students in the school, but that number determines the number of, quote, homerooms. It doesn't include all of the other spaces, special education spaces, maker spaces, music spaces that could be in the building, because at any given time, students are distributed throughout the space.
And I was in some of the discussions with Dr. Bodie and some of the staff and Dr. Janger and others about the size. We did bring up the Thompson, and we brought up the fact that we went to the MSBA several years ago and said the Thompson should be larger than you're saying it is, and we reminded them that of that fact, and so they didn't. I think it gave them pause, and so I think it did impact the discussion.
I think that one of the things that's really tricky for everybody involved in these kind of things, MSBA, is that certain parts of the state, areas right close to Boston, are growing at rates that are not going on in the rest of the state. In fact, in many parts of the state, in fact, just beyond 495, you have decreasing enrollments. So what they're trying to do is to make sure that we don't overbuild, as well as they don't want us to underbuild because of that last question about how do you add on later on, which we've faced with Thompson. So everybody wants to get the sweet spot. But it's hard to get exactly that. You do your very best, and it was involved in I would say it was very productive and spanned over a period of many, many weeks as we finally got to that point.
Next question is, how do we handle the need for parking, especially short-term parking for visitors and evening programs? Adam, you want to where are you at?
Oh, no. God.
I guess from a design perspective?
Parking in Arlington is a challenge everywhere,
Yeah.
okay? We know that the elementary schools, same thing, so it's just magnified by the volume at the high school. I don't have an answer today, sorry. It's a very good question. And
well, I guess from a design perspective, does that come into the design?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Define that way. You will not get reimbursement for that.
No. But
whether
that
it's
is a good
underground
idea.
or above ground, either way, if it's a structured, yeah.
Okay,
we actually are working in a school, the Devotion School in Brookline, and they have opted to do a one level of underground parking, and MSBA and all their formulas just figure out what the math is for that, and they don't reimburse for that portion. So it is possible to physically do it. They don't completely say no, it's just that they don't pay.
The next question is, are there plans to work with the town to improve accessibility for people walking, biking, and taking transit to Arlington High School? And then there's a comment here, set specific goals, exclamation point.
I can answer that too. As a requirement, not only will your building be accessible, your site will be accessible to the extent possible. I think most of you know that there's about at least 30 odd feet drop from the front of the building to the back of the building. So some aspects it's more accessible from front to back and that type of thing. But again, your route to the school will have multiple accessible options.
For biking, walking, and public transit. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure, of course. So the question is there anyone looking? So the question is there anyone looking into a connection to the bikeway, to the Minuteman bikeway?
Well, actually, when we were doing our pre-proposal trying to get the job, we actually had a lot of thoughts about that in our office. So we haven't gotten that far in this process, but yeah.
Can we do a temporary one now instead of waiting 10 years? Adam?
Yeah.
You want to allocate capital? I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Adam. You're a good guy to take a question like that.
I'd say it's hard. There's some grade challenges. The grade and security challenges, having access to the entire facilities without having it be part of a more comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
So we could take a look at it, but nothing jumps to my mind immediately of where the easy cut and hill is to get somebody in there and not having, again, immediate access to some of the playing fields that are locked overnight. But I think we can certainly talk about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Pat. Thank you. The next question is, will there be, this is the last question, it's actually a perfect segue, and it's almost 9 o'clock. Kirsty, will the other forums that are scheduled be on covering different topics? Will the agendas of these meetings be posted prior to the meeting? So the answer is yes to both. The agenda, I think we posted this so we have posted this, and we do want to get people to come. We have a communications subcommittee, which is Kirstie Allison-Ampe, Amy Spear, Toby Jackson, and then several representatives of Skanska and HMFH. Is there anybody else I'm missing? Am I missing anyone from that committee?
Kathy Bodie.
And Kathy Bodie. Sorry about that. We have a very active, and they're the ones that have come up with this forum. So I want to thank them for putting together a great forum tonight. And really. The next forum is February 7th. It's February 7th at 7 p.m. in this hall. And I do want to get ahead of what you're, okay. So they're going to talk about what they're going to come up with some themes for this, but I think we're going to be talking more a little bit about the educational vision. Is that correct? Okay. So I can say that. I get correct after I leave these things, and different members of the committee correct me. So might as well just talk about that in front of everybody. So the next meeting, we'll be talking more about the academic vision for the high school and academics in the high school. So those of you with thoughts on academics and how much pre-calc there should be, just come to the meeting prepared. All right. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. We got done by 9 o'clock. This was a great forum, and we look forward to seeing you on the 7th. And please spread the word and tell friends and neighbors to come. Thank you.